I'm trying to take things in a very different direction of a human rights democracy-based foreign policy rather than interventionist one. You have to have a process of first of all, challenging the human rights record seriously of those countries involved. We're incredibly selective on human rights issues in Britain. We sign up, of course, to the Universal Declaration, the European Convention, and we do have the Arms Export Control Committee, or the Monitoring Committee in Parliament, but we're actually very selective on this, and we've done precious little about Saudi Arabia for a very long time. I'm one of the few MPs that has regularly raised the issue of Saudi Arabia and its human rights in Parliament, along with Indonesia and a number of other countries. And so I want to say that, first of all, we're serious about human rights. We're serious about having a human rights advisor in British embassies around the world. This government has taken most of them out and replaced them with trade and investment advisors. Secondly, that we push for the enforcement where there are human rights clauses in European trade agreements with different countries, and there is always a human rights clause in an EU trade agreement. Now, post-EU Brexit, it may well be that we're into direct trade agreements with different countries around the world. There has to be, as far as I'm concerned, a very tough human rights clause within that. So that sets the narrative and sets the benchmark. The next one is on arms exports, because if we export arms and they are then used in the case of Bahrain to kill people on the streets of Bahrain, well, who's guilty? Who's responsible? Are we not responsible? We knowingly sold those arms, knowing they were going to be used in Bahrain. So is it possible to change these things? Yes. If we want to live in a world of peace, live in a world of justice towards people and human rights, then there has to be a foreign policy that reflects that. That is where I'm at.
Mr. Corbyn, you were, as a backbencher, a champion of Palestinian rights, and yet you've been strangely silent as leader of the opposition. Why is that?
Listen, there'll be no peace in the Middle East until you get justice. And therefore, I do support the recognition of Palestine, which I've done. I do want to see that happen. I do want to see an end to the siege of Gaza as a process as part of that. I've made my position very, very clear on settlements and on Israeli expansion. I asserted my position. I will continue to assert my position on that, and I will be developing foreign policy a great deal, and my views, my determination to promote a peace process and peace settlement in the Middle East, which obviously has to involve recognition of Palestine, is something very important to me.